Hello everyone, thank you for returning to the channel. Today, I'm bringing you another chapter in the stormy journey of Lythieuca, a girl who constantly struggles between family, love, and the secrets from the past that are slowly coming to light. This episode is filled with unexpected twists, tense moments, and scenes that will keep you watching closely. So make sure to stay until the end of the video so you don't miss any important details. Early on a weekend morning, when the dew was still sparkling on the roadside grass, Hung had already driven down to the city. The world was still half asleep, the streets nearly empty, and the sound of his engine echoed softly in the pale dawn. In front of the small boarding house, Hoai was holding Tony while waiting. The moment the little boy saw his father, he wriggled with excitement, patting his tiny hands on his mother's shoulder as if saying, "Put me down. I know that person." His whole face lit up instantly. Hoai laughed. "He missed you a lot." She placed Tony in the back seat. He couldn't speak yet, only babbled in his own little language, his lips puckering as if telling a secret story of his own. Throughout the drive back to the countryside, Tony kept leaning toward the window, sometimes pointing at the fields, sometimes kicking his legs in excitement. Every time the car passed a herd of cows or a stretch of green rice fields, his face lit up like a tiny lamp. Watching through the rearview mirror, Hung chuckled. "He's exactly like I was. Show him fields or rice paddies and he's thrilled." Hoai glanced at her son, her voice soft as water. "Just getting close to home and he already misses Grandma, huh?" The countryside road that day was stunning. The rice on both sides was in its lush growing stage, a thick green carpet stretching all the way to the horizon. The breeze seeping in through the car window carried the scent of damp soil, river silt, and the cool warmth of early sunlight. Just setting foot in this place made half the burdens in Hoai's heart melt away. When the car finally turned into the yard, Tony didn't wait for the adults. He lunged forward, waving his arms wildly as if announcing, "Let me out." The moment Hung opened the door, Tony slipped from his arms and toddled across the dew-wet cement floor. As soon as he caught sight of the figure standing at the porch, his eyes brightened and he burst out in excited baby sounds. Oh. Grandma spun around, dropping her broom to the ground. "Oh my goodness. My Tony is home." She bent down and scooped him up. Tony immediately wrapped his arms around her neck, burying his face into her shoulder like a little kitten seeking familiar warmth. Grandma stroked his back, her smile gentle like all the morning sunlight gathered in one place. "Heavens, did you miss Grandma? I've been waiting for you till I almost fainted." Tony couldn't speak, but he giggled, patting her cheeks with his tiny hands as if answering her. Hoai stood watching, her eyes softening, her heart suddenly feather-light. Hung walked up behind them, arms loosely crossed, his gaze warm and softened like earth after rain. Such a simple family moment, yet so startlingly beautiful. Laughter filled the yard, blending with the faint smoke from the kitchen and the aroma of steaming sticky rice drifting from the back of the house. It created a warmth so comforting that anyone passing by would want to linger just a little longer. After picking up his mother and Tony, Hung changed his shirt and headed straight out to the yard. Last night's rain had soaked the ground, the chicken run had turned into patches of muddy puddles. Wherever the chick stepped, the mud splashed up in messy little bursts. He folded his arms, surveyed the place, then shook his head. If we leave it like this, they'll keep getting sick. Tomorrow I'll lay sand and rice husks, and redo the water trough. His voice carried that mix of seriousness and quiet responsibility, the kind of man who could only relax once everything was properly taken care of. Inside the porch, Hoai was straightening the mat and folding Tony's extra clothes. She looked up at him, a soft smile tugging at her lips. I knew you'd say that. Just one night of rain and you're already more worried than anyone. Hung walked over to help her, the two of them working side by side with a natural rhythm, as if they'd been living together for years. A little while later, the whole family gathered on the porch to rest. Grandma poured each person a cup of hot tea, the scent of ginger drifting lightly in the breeze. Tony sat in her lap, tapping his plastic cup on the table with his tiny hands, eyes darting around, curious about everything. While sipping his tea, Hung said, "The teacher called me this morning. She said a charity group is visiting the school at noon to give gifts to poor kids. We should take Tony so he can get something too." Tony heard his name and immediately lifted his head, eyes wide and sparkling. He babbled a few excited sounds, kicking his legs on Grandma's lap as if urging, "Let's go." Hoai leaned against a pillar, looking a little tired after the early trip. "Maybe, let Mom take Tony. I'll stay home, unpack, and rest a bit." Grandma nodded instantly, her face lighting up. "Of course. I'll take him. It'll be fun. Haven't visited the school in a while anyway." At the mention of going out, Tony flailed his arms excitedly, kicking even harder and babbling non-stop as if rushing his grandma, "Hurry up, hurry up." She laughed warmly and lifted him into her arms. All right. Grandma's taking her little treasure right now." The two of them walked out the gate, one tall, one tiny, hand in hand on the damp dirt road, chattering together like two old friends reunited after a long time. Inside the house, only Hoai and Hung remained. The silence wasn't empty, it was the comforting kind, the warmth of a home still filled with the echo of a child's laughter, and the peace shared between two adults finally breathing easy after days apart. With Grandma and Tony already on their way to the school, the house felt quieter. Hoai took the chance to call the neighbor she had asked to catch a few breeding pairs of pigeons for her. The moment he picked up, he chuckled. "Come over, girl. I've got them ready for you. All young, healthy birds. Raise them right and they'll lay plenty." Hoai put on her hat and walked through the narrow shortcut behind the house. The neighbor's tiled roof home was tucked behind a bright red bougainvillea trellis. He was already waiting outside, holding an old bamboo cage. Inside were 4 pigeons, white, blue, and speckled, their feathers glossy and wings strong. He pointed at each one, speaking proudly. "Here, 2 males, 2 females. Best if you split them into 2 coops. They breed fast and they're easy to care for." She couldn't help smiling. Back in the city, she never had the chance to do things like this. But being home again, raising small, simple things with her own hands, filled her heart with a strange, warming joy. The neighbor lent her a wooden cage, and she carefully carried the pigeons back. As she stepped into the yard, Hung walked out from the back of the house. Seeing her holding the cage, he laughed. "Planning to start a whole pigeon farm?" Hoai puffed her cheeks. I'm raising them so Tony can have fresh eggs. And, well, it makes the house feel livelier. Hung nodded without another word. He simply turned back inside and returned with his tools, hammer, nails, saw, and several wooden planks he had stored under the kitchen awning. All right then. Let's build it. A man should at least make his wife a proper coop. He rolled up his sleeves, veins standing out under the midday sun. She stood beside him, helping hold the boards in place, laughing because he sounded serious but his face was clearly pleased. The sound of the saw, ret ret. The hammer, cock cock cock. The pigeons flapping now and then in the cage. The two worked in perfect rhythm. He measured, she held the wood. He hammered, she swept the shavings. He cleared the ground, she wiped the boards. No one needed to explain anything. Everything fit perfectly, like they had done this 100 times. After almost an hour, the two-tier wooden pigeon coop was finished. The fresh timber smelled clean and cool as the breeze passed through it. Hoai opened the little door to check the inside, her eyes sparkling like a child receiving a new present. It's so pretty, isn't it? Hung brushed the dust off his hands and sat on the step, half proud, half teasing. As if I'd ever make something ugly. Hoai laughed and reached over to wipe the sweat off his forehead. The moment was light, real. The kind of moment where just looking at each other made everything feel peaceful. The little house after the rain seemed to come alive again. The smell of fresh wood, the soft cooing from the cage, sunlight glinting on drying soil. A simple countryside noon, warmer than any place else. What they didn't know was, in just a few minutes, something unexpected was waiting for them at the end of the alley. In the small kitchen roofed with old corrugated metal, heat rose in thick waves, carrying a thin veil of steam that swirled through the air. It blended with the scent of traditional herbs, jujube, goji berries, codonopsis, cinnamon, all simmering together with the pork hock softening under the gentle flame. The fragrance was rich enough that anyone standing outside the porch would have to swallow their saliva. And for someone standing inside the kitchen like Hoai, it felt like the whole house had grown warmer and more comforting. She held a pair of bamboo chopsticks and gently turned the pork hock so the broth would soak in evenly. The heat rising from the pot dotted her forehead with sweat, yet her eyes carried a soft, simple joy, the joy of a woman tending to a meal for her family. She tilted the pot slightly, listening to the steady bubbling of the broth, like the warm breathing of the kitchen itself. From the yard came the sound of running water. Hung was washing his hands under the rainwater collected from last night's storm. He stepped into the kitchen, his hands still wet, his shirt damp with sweat from building the pigeon coop earlier. He stopped right at the doorway, tilted his head, and inhaled deeply. His eyes lit up. My gosh, with this smell, anyone who eats it will be strong as an ox. If you cook like this often, Tony will grow up as big as me. He spoke with the delight of a grown man who secretly behaved like a kid whenever he smelled his favorite food. Hung walked closer to the pot, leaning in with his hands on his hips like some food expert inspecting a masterpiece. Hoai laughed, scooping up a spoonful of broth. She blew on it gently before tasting. The sweetness from the bone, the warm aroma of herbs, the light fattiness of the pork, everything blended so perfectly that her eyes curved with satisfaction. Perfect. If Tony eats this for a few days, he'll gain weight right away. Watching her taste the food made something warm bloom quietly in Hung's chest. The kind of warmth a man feels when he comes home and sees the woman he loves caring for every meal. He dried his hands with a towel before saying, "I'll go pick up Mom and Tony. They'll be tired walking home. Besides, I'm impatient. I want to come back and eat quickly." The second part of his sentence came out softer, stripping away a bit of his usual toughness, revealing something shy and endearing. Hoai pressed her lips together, smiling. "All right. Drive safely. The food will be ready by the time you're back." Hung turned around and stepped outside. The sound of his slippers tapping lightly on the tiled floor echoed softly, familiar and comforting. Sunlight filtered through the tall erica leaves, casting a streak of brightness on his back, stretching his shadow across the yard. When he disappeared through the gate, the little courtyard suddenly fell into a gentle quiet. In the kitchen, only the faint crackling of the fire and the steady hiss of rising steam remained. Hoai leaned lightly against the table, looking around the house. The wooden walls were old, the window covered with a curtain she had sewn herself, and though the meal wasn't set out yet, the room was already soaked in warmth. Nothing here was luxurious, but every corner carried the touch of family. Every utensil held a trace of love, from the porcelain bowl with a tiny crack to the wooden cutting board Hung had freshly sanded that morning. She let out a soft sigh, the sigh of someone who knows she is living a gentle kind of happiness, the kind many people spend their whole lives searching for. A breeze drifted through the window, brushing the floral curtain so it fluttered slightly. The herbal aroma from the simmering pot spread through the air, making the little home feel even more familiar. Peaceful, simple, whole. But within that quiet, picture-perfect stillness, no one in the house knew that something unexpected was already on its way. Only minutes away. While Hoai was standing by the stove, stirring the simmering pot of pork hock for extra fragrance, another story was quietly unfolding at the edge of the village. The red dirt road stretched long under the fading afternoon sun. The wind brushed through the leaning bamboo clusters, their leaves rustling as if whispering secrets. Along that road walked a woman wearing an old, weathered conical hat, her footsteps slow and steady, the kind formed by a lifetime of working the fields. It was Hung's mother. The woman who had once made a grievous mistake, leaving behind her only son. The woman who had spent years carrying that guilt like an unhealed wound. In her hand was a frayed brown cloth bag. Inside was the money she had scraped together over several years, selling chickens, pigs, even borrowing from relatives. She stopped in front of Manna's gate. Seeing her, Man hesitated, not because she was a stranger, but because one look into her eyes told him something heavy was coming. She tightened her grip on the bag strap, her voice trembling as if she were holding her breath to keep from breaking. "Man, I want to buy back the old house. I just hope Hung can forgive me." Her voice was so soft that anyone standing a few steps away might not have heard it. But every word landed with the weight of a stone. Man sighed, compassion filling his eyes. He knew she had suffered for years. He knew she wasn't returning for a house, she was returning for a son who had grown up without a mother's presence. "All right, Auntie. Let me take you to the current owners. Let's speak honestly. Maybe they'll show some kindness." They walked together to Hung's old house. The home that once echoed with laughter now belonged to someone else, a young family who bought it from an acquaintance. The owner, a woman in her 40s, looked respectable but cautious. The conversation unfolded in a suffocating stillness. Man explained everything. The woman listened, then sighed. The house is nearly $1 billion dong now. Back then, when it was mortgaged, it was only 600 million. I'll have to discuss this with my family. Hung's mother stood silently, her wrinkled hands gripping the bag strap. She opened the bag, unzipped it, revealing the stack of money inside. Not much, but the entirety of her 3 years of toil. Whatever the price. I want to buy it back. I just need one chance to make things right. Her voice cracked at the last word, dissolving into a muffled sob. The homeowner flinched at the sound, but still held her position. Give me a week, Auntie. I need to talk to my husband and children. With no other choice, Hung's mother nodded, her eyelashes trembling. Tears rolled slowly down her cheeks, falling onto the red dirt beneath her feet. Man placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Auntie, don't sell your land. That's your livelihood. And, if Hung finds out, he'll be heartbroken. She tried to smile, but it broke halfway. Her voice was barely a whisper. If I don't have enough money, then what do I have left to trade for his forgiveness? They left the house as the sun sank lower. The golden light stained the dirt road a deep amber, stretching their shadows long behind them, like faint brushstrokes on an old page. The evening wind dried the tears still clinging to her cheeks. Inside Hung's mother, fear and hope twisted together, forming a tight knot in her chest. All she wished was that after years drowning in guilt, one day she could stand before her son without lowering her head. One day, to hear him call Mother. Just once. That would be enough. Late in the afternoon, the last sunlight spread a thin golden layer over the village road like a silk sheet. Hung stopped his motorbike in front of the elementary school, where Grandma was holding Tony under the fiery red canopy of an old flamboyant tree. The moment Tony spotted his father from afar, he wriggled in Grandma's arms, raising his little gift bag high and shaking it proudly. His tiny mouth burst into a clear E, as if trying desperately to say, Daddy. Look. I got something. Grandma laughed, her heart softening at the sight. He even got a comic book from the teacher, you know. Hearing his name, Tony hugged the brand new comic book tightly to his chest, giggling and kicking his legs like he was ready to jump down and show it off. His cheeks were still dusty from the schoolyard, but his eyes sparkled like water catching the sunset. Grandma looked at her grandson, then at Hung, warmth in her gaze, but also a quiet sadness. She loved the little boy, loved Hung, and somewhere deep inside, she felt a sting of sympathy for Hung's birth mother, the woman wandering near the edge of the village, clutching a bag of money, trying to buy back the old house just so her son might look at her without resentment, even once. Hung knew nothing of this. He simply leaned down, took Tony into his arms, and brushed a hand through the boy's hair. Let's go home, son. Mom CA is cooking something delicious. Tony couldn't answer, of course he couldn't, but he wrapped his arms around his father's neck, pressing his face into his shoulder with a wide smile. The way he held on spoke louder than any words ever could. The three walked down the village path, slowly sinking into shade. The wind rustled through the bamboo, the scent of the fields drifted across the road, a scene so gentle, so poetic, it could calm any heart just by looking at it. By the time they reached the yard, the smell from the kitchen had already reached the gate. Hoai's herbal porkhock stew simmered softly, the scent of jujube, goji berries, cinnamon, and rich bone broth wrapping around the house like a mother's embrace. She turned as she heard the gate. And the moment she saw Tony in Hung's arms smiling up at her, cheeks flushed pink from the sun, her heart melted as if touched by something sacred. Out on the porch, the pigeons in the new two-tier coop cooed and fluttered their wings, adding their voices to the little home. The scent of fresh wood, the birds' soft sounds, the herbal fragrance, the laughter of a child, all blended into a warm, family soundtrack, like spring settling into the house. Hung set Tony down. The boy immediately clutched his comic book and toddled toward the pigeon coop, gripping the wooden bars as he watched the birds fly inside. Every time they fluttered their wings, he burst into giggles and clapped his hands excitedly. Grandma stepped into the kitchen to help Hoai set the table. While Hung leaned against the doorway, watching his wife and son, his expression peaceful in a way he once believed he'd never feel again. The day ended with the sound of a child's laughter, the aroma of a warm meal, and the sight of a family gathered close. Small things, yet powerful enough to soothe every wound life had left behind. But beneath that peaceful surface, something was stirring like an unseen current. At the edge of the village, Hung's birth mother still stood at a difficult crossroads. Not enough money. No guarantee the house could be bought back. And she had no idea whether her son would forgive her, or turn away once more. Her journey toward redemption had only just begun. Will Hung's mother have enough money to reclaim the old house? And when the truth reaches Hung, how will he react? Stay tuned for the next episode to see where the story goes.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người, cảm ơn mọi người vì mọi người đã theo dõi đến những phút cuối cùng của video. Bây giờ thì mình đang trong quá trình hoàn thành video đây mọi người ơi. Mình vẫn đang edit và chưa có hoàn thành, và mình vẫn đang cố gắng để có thể hoàn thành sớm nhất có thể. Cảm ơn mọi người đã theo dõi video của mình nhé. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong những video sau. Mong rằng sẽ tiếp tục gặp lại mọi người. Và mọi người ơi, nếu như mà có ý kiến đóng góp gì thì mọi người hãy để lại ở phần bình luận của kênh nha. Cảm ơn mọi người rất là nhiều. Bye bye.